The bridge has been mine since my father died, though he'd say it was never anyone's to own, only to respect. It stretches across a narrow creek, old timber ribs slick with moss, iron bolts sunk deep like arthritic joints. Every groan of its planks feels personal, like a memory straining under weight it was never meant to carry. When I moved back to the house last spring, the neighborhood had changed. Trimmed lawns, new rules, the dull hum of the Homeowners Association in every letterbox. They called my bridge non-compliant infrastructure. I called it history. I repaired it myself, plank by plank, each nail a promise that it would never be their concern. But last week, I began hearing heavier engines late in the evening. At first, I thought it was coincidence, until tonight. The sound came again, a low mechanical snarl rolling closer, then the shudder of something immense pressing down. That was when I realized they were using my bridge to break me. HOA Maintenance Division. This is Carla. This is Marlowe. Someone's been sending cement trucks across my bridge. Our records show that's a public easement, ma'am. It's private property. Then perhaps you should file a maintenance claim. I don't need claims. I need them to stop. Silence. Then the faint click of a smile through the line. Dust pooled like spilled ink across the lane. The truck loomed. Gray, massive, its barrel turning slow as if tasting the air. Diesel fumes drifted over the creek. When it passed, the boards exhaled a deep, aching groan. I knelt beside the wheel marks, fingertips touching the wet, oily print. Still warm. Something deliberate had crossed my bridge tonight. Morning came pale and brittle. Light skimming the cracked boards of the bridge. I traced the gouges from last night's tires, memorizing the pattern before walking back inside. My desk was a battlefield of envelopes. HOA notices, invoices, circulars stamped urgent. I opened them all. Behind the polite language, the message was clear. Surrender the bridge or watch it collapse. The HOA's digital archive wasn't meant for outsiders, but few late-night searches and cached minutes told stories the board didn't want told. Multiple deliveries logged on private access route, all within 10-minute intervals, all signed by the same contractor, Keller Concrete Logistics. The company's permit expired 6 months ago, yet the signatures were new. Someone was feeding them permission. By noon, I found myself standing before the HOA office, sterile and humming with fluorescent light. Files lined the walls, a paper mausoleum of suburban order. And there, smiling from behind a desk that looked too expensive for community service, was Elias Hart, board president, local saint, unregistered tyrant. His handshake was smooth as glass, his gaze fixed too long to feel polite. I told myself I came for information, but truthfully, I came to see what power looked like when it dressed in courtesy. Marlowe, right? The bridge woman. I prefer homeowner. He laughed softly. We're just ensuring safety, nothing personal. Safety doesn't explain forged permits. Accusations require proof. I have minutes, Elias. He leaned closer. Minutes don't prove intent. You'd be surprised what bureaucracy forgets. I don't forget. Then remember this, he said, voice silken with warning. That bridge is a liability to you most of all. I smiled back. Then I suppose we're both at risk. The office smelled of toner and disinfectant. A single ledger lay open on the table, coffee-stained, its columns ruled in trembling red pen. Beside it, a brass nameplate gleamed. Elias Hart, president. Fluorescent light flickered across his perfect smile, casting a second shadow under his chin. Faint but reptilian. Outside, Rosa, the mail carrier, shuffled through envelopes, paused, and murmured, "They've been sending trucks every week, you know." The words slipped through the glass like a confession. Elias's warning had echoed for days. Liability. Risk. As if those words were weapons carved in legal ink. But when power hides behind procedure, exposure becomes the only language it understands. I spent nights at my kitchen table, mapping delivery routes, cross-referencing timestamps from Rosa's mail logs with the HOA's maintenance calendar. Each overlap confirmed my suspicion. The trucks were scheduled deliberately to stress the bridge. They wanted failure they could photograph. So I built something different. Proof of intent. Rosa helped reroute official notices, slipping a forged invoice into Keller Concrete's next order file, authorizing a delivery heavier than any prior. The system would eat its own tail. Jonah entered the plan last, half by guilt, half by accident. Once Elias's favorite contractor, he'd been cut loose after questioning a bid. He still carried the shame like oil under his nails. He knew how bridges collapsed, not from a single truck, but from a slow forgetting of weight. The night we prepared the trap, rain whispered across the water, and the creek ran high. I adjusted the small motion light under the first arch, wired to trigger the camera at full load. The bridge would finally speak for itself. But I hadn't planned for company. "Jonah, if the truck exceeds 40 tons, the sensors will catch it," I said. He stared at the boards. "And if it fails?" "It won't." "You sound sure." "I need to be." Rosa tightened her coat. They moved the schedule up. "Deliveries tonight." Jonah hesitated. "Mara, this isn't just revenge. It's correction." "Same blood, different vein," he muttered. I looked toward the creek. "You can still walk away." He didn't. "Neither can you." Then the first rumble rose through the mist. Heavy, deliberate, and unforgiving. The bridge shimmered under the floodlight, slick and trembling, its beams catching the yellow glare of the approaching truck. Diesel fumes tangled with the wet air. My heart counted the rotations of the drum. 1, 2, 3, until the weight settled on the planks with a cracking sigh. Cameras blinked alive. Red light reflected on puddles like warning eyes. Then movement. Small, darting. A child's bicycle at the far end of the lane, chrome flashing. I shouted too late. The bridge answered with a splintering roar that silenced everything but the rain. Morning arrived slow and colorless, the creek running thick with silt and guilt. The bridge stood half-collapsed, its railing bowed inward like something ashamed to still exist. News spread faster than the rain. By noon, the HOA had sent lawyers, engineers, and damage control specialists, each pretending the truth could be paved over with paperwork. The investigation was merciless. The forged invoice surfaced first, followed by Keller Concrete's logs. Elias denied knowledge, then blamed subordinates. When the footage from my cameras leaked, the overloaded truck, the child's near fall, the bridge's surrender, his denial cracked. Jonah took the brunt of it publicly, the man who assisted in unauthorized modifications. Rosa kept quiet, slipping information to investigators until her name was whispered in grateful tones. And me? I was both witness and culprit, my motives too tangled for courtrooms. At night, I sat by the window, watching flashlights flicker along the wreck. Truth had been dragged into daylight, but it came limping, half-broken. Justice wasn't blind. It was exhausted. Elias found me outside the hearing room. "You think this makes you righteous?" he said. "No," I answered. "Just honest." He smirked. "Honesty ruins people. So does deceit." He leaned in. "You'll still live beside that wreck. Every day, it'll remind you what you did." I met his gaze. "Good. Reminders keep bridges from falling again." He looked away first. That was enough. At dawn, mist hung low over the ruined span. The creek gurgled beneath fractured timbers, washing fragments downstream, with nails, maybe absolution. A child's bicycle bell glinted in the mud. Rosa stood on the opposite bank, clipboard in hand, marking notes for reconstruction. I traced the scarred concrete across my palm, the bridge's last gift, and whispered a promise the water swallowed whole.